This is TWiT.
In honor of your first full-time episode, when you get the honors of this next block.
Oh gosh, I got the email of the week. That's exciting. All right. And I kind of feel like a thank you so much. A little bit of method acting here, I suppose, but okay, let's jump into it. Let's jump into the email of the week. Let's see here. All right. All right. 35 years, system programmer and game developer. I believe in supporting the software I use. I am sick for flipping subscriptions. Charge what you want for the software, period. Then charge for an update if you need to, and allow me, the user, to decide if it's worth it or I want to move along to another software package. Subscriptions are annoying. Subscriptions are tedious to keep up with. And it's not just a matter of just one cup of coffee or a movie when you have 10 plus apps and they are all wanting from $4 to $10 a month subscription. Then Adobe has their subscriptions, and then Microsoft has the subscriptions. Stop with the subscriptions. Ron doesn't even talk about paying for more than a year every month for software that never gets updates or gets pathetic updates, or suddenly just disappeared without notice because the OS has passed it up. And in fact, the package has been abandoned for a long time. The guy has just been taking your money. Just stop with the support your dev, just set a price for the software and charge that. If your software costs too much to support after you sold it, Ron, then you aren't charging enough. And if it won't sell for what you have to charge, then maybe you need to develop something else. Brett.
Thank you,
Why
Brett.
am I getting singled out here in the email of the week?
Congratulations.
It's all about you, Ron.
It's all about you, Ron.
This has to do with a conversation that we had last week, and I'm trying. I'm sure you had some arguments about it that apparently Brett has latched onto. But the point that Brett is making is there's too many dang subscriptions. I think one point that I pull out of here that I think is definitely worth considering, worth discussing, is the idea that if an app is worth something, charge what it's worth. Don't put it on a recurring subscription basis. As a developer, I guess, how does that sit with you? Because I know there are reasons that a subscription makes sense, right? There's costs, recurring costs that have to be covered. But there are also probably developers, I'm sure there are developers that have a subscription when there aren't those recurring costs. So what do you think about that one?
I mean, I have many feelings about this. So I do understand, Brett. I do understand the frustration with subscriptions. Subscriptions can be consumer unfriendly. They can be overpriced. And yes, there are some devs that are not so great and they give slow or missing updates or just leave you with bugs and still charge you. I'm very sympathetic to all that. The question of how much someone's time is worth is a complicated one. And it's what we're talking about, basically. How much do you think someone's time is worth? And
right.
It is so, where do I start with this? It's the question of how much is your time worth? And I think for a large company, that might be an easier question to answer. That might be an easier question to be able to find easy answers for. If you're talking for smaller shops, if you're talking an individual person, how do you ask them what their time is worth? Do you say, okay, I work 50, maybe I'll charge, I think a good rate's $50 an hour. How many hours did I spend on this? And, that's kind of like a nice mechanical, mathematical way of doing it. But there's so many things that I think, especially when you start out in dev, that you don't realize you need, that costs will incur, that things happen. And you're another thing is it's hard. So if I made you an app today, let's say it took me 6 months to do it. And I guess, okay, so maybe I make something like, I don't know,
flashlight app. No, I'm just
flashlight app. There you go. Flashlight app.
QR code reader.
QR code reader. There we go.
And it takes me and it takes me, say, a couple of months to do it right. Let's do QR code reader because I feel like the QR code reader, it takes me 2 months to get it right. And I could try to add up the number of hours that I spent working on it and divide by some number. that's not a guarantee that you're going to get that number of people. Like for one thing, we're in 10, 12, however many years of mobile space. There are a million apps that do probably, like it used to be fun to, as an app developer, think of what your $1 million app idea is. In 2022, we're in now, someone's probably already thought of it. And so,
and a lot of someone's have
and
already
a lot of someone's have thought about it. And a lot of someone's are either just putting out apps for free because they're just trying to exercise skills or maybe promote something else. They maybe have ads as a way of like drawing money. And there's a lot of different like kind of strategies around apps. Do you just roll an app every 3 minutes, regardless of whether the user wants it or not, which I really dislike? Or do you like offer, in that sense, a premium experience where they can pay to get rid of ads? Or do you just not have ads and have a subscription? And when you're putting an app out there to make money, to monetize, you're competing. So not just with other apps, their quality, their particular implementation or perspective on what you're doing, you're also competing on how other people monetize. And so, yes, I feel like maybe I spent 2 months on my QR code app, and maybe like for what I feel I put into it. And if I expect, say, if I hope like 1,000 people download my app, what do I charge to make up for like the 2 months of my time? Do I charge them $2 and make $2,000? Do I charge them like maybe $10,000 and get whatever the math on that is, and kind of like make, more of a living on that? I'm sorry, the math doesn't adding up. So it's not just, it's a very hard equation. There's no winning there. And like the problem with charging once and then saying, charging more for updates later is manifold. So on the Google Play Store, for example, you can charge or you can make your app free. If you decide to change at any point, you can't change your free app to a paid app later. It basically becomes a new app. And that becomes a problem of, well, it's a different app, so your metrics are going to be different. Your marketing might be different, like all these kind of like things that are attached to that old app become invalidated. And once you charge for an app, you can certainly raise the price, but the people that have already paid for that app have paid for it. So there's no getting extra money from people. App updates are free. And then, there's going to be costs. So not even just like, say, you're the time that you spend on it. So I actually have several friends who have full-time job, but also have side gigs. And, they all of them that have use subscription to offer a way to compensate them for their work, kind of as an alternative to ads, kind of cite, well, there's more than just kind of writing. So like, there's the time that you spend writing an app, but if you are an app that needs like storage, like AWS, that you need some kind of like server support, like maybe, you do some kind of cloud syncing, maybe you kind of tap some other API, that's going to cost something. And that's a recurring cost. And that's a very common recurring costs, like a flashlight app or I always think of fart apps because I feel like that was like the first apps I heard about.
I forgot about fart apps.
Like kind of going back to the old days, like things like that are self-contained, will not have these recurring costs. So sure, you could say, I spent this amount of my life. It probably won't need updates, maybe. So I can charge this flat rate. But if you are kind of any kind of app that needs to compete with things that are increasingly interconnected, that are increasingly cloud-backed, it's really hard to not have these recurring costs. Like anyway, sorry. Yeah, it's just, I could go on for this forever. Please continue.
Well, and you're totally on the right track. And he singled me out. I don't know what he's referring to that I referenced or whatnot. But the thing is that like, not to go back to Apple bashing, but like Apple in the creation of iOS and the iPhone and the App Store ecosystem basically devalued the price of apps for all developers. And then that eked over into Android when Android launched and happened. So you tell me how many, if you see an app in the Google Play Store that's $48.99, are you going to buy it? No, because nobody values the apps they're installing, right? $2.99 a month is a little more palatable, and and if it's an app I use that I consistently feel I have value and I'm okay, paying for it and doing it and stuff like that, then I'm fine paying the $2.99 a month because I'm not going to pay $50 the way I used to spend $75 on computer games when they came out. Right. And I play them and finish them and be done with it. Like the thing was, software was clearly you have 35 years of experience. You're a game developer. You know what I'm talking about. You would get a box with 10 discs and you would play that game and you'd fantastic. And when you're done, you put it on the shelf. The software doesn't exist now. Software exists in the cloud. When to your point that there are infrastructure costs that are recurring, ongoing costs. I have an app like that I maintain and is part of my business, and we provide it for free because we want users to do. But we've also created a piece of hardware that plugs into a cloud service, and we charge a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription because guess what? The more you use it, the more those charges exist for us. We have to cover our costs somehow, right? And so I don't know. I just don't think it's. I get the idea of charge something for your software. I totally get that. And if I'm buying, but I was just gonna say, if I'm buying Photoshop, then I get spending $500 for a great piece of software that enables me to do so much more. But even Adobe moved to subscription service.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't know. I get the argument, but I think it's outdated. I think that society and everything has moved on, and also the app infrastructure marketplace is so devalued. And I just did a quick search for expensive Android apps, and there's an Android here. I'll put it in the chat. There's an Android Authority article that lays out the 10 most expensive Android apps and games. But it's things like Creston, which is the smart home system. If you're familiar with smart homes and stuff like that, Creston, the whole system could, it says here, could cost up to $10,000. The app costs $99 to use. Like, that's insane, right? Wow. DirecTV's app is could be up to $129 a month, right?
For DirecTV.
Yeah, right. But for the service, yeah. But then here you see Dr. Web Security Space Life, antivirus app that they're charging for $89, right? Like, so some people are doing it, they're offering it. How successful they are, who knows? But I know for me,
the market
I'm looking,
decides that. Yeah,
exactly. I have a harder time swallowing any sort of app, whether one-time purchase or subscription, that is more than $7 to $10. And that's just the fact of it. So
yeah. And I think something about, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
No, and I think something, especially with subscriptions, I think, especially, and as I mentioned these days, it's really hard to get your foot in the door into being a successful, app developer, especially if you're small and independent. Big companies, it's kind of par for the course. Most of them are free anyway, because as you mentioned, Ron, they have other income streams that are offsetting this cost. So that makes sense, and they can charge like a small fixed rate. With subscriptions, and as I get older, I'm annoyed at subscriptions too. Sometimes they're a pain in the butt. Sometimes they are kind of, I wouldn't say predatory, but just kind of, they're very sticky at times, and it's hard to have a lot of places don't have trials where you can kind of test something out. But at the same time, I think a subscription is a good compromise in, okay, you maybe I see an app that I might like. It's $9. I download it. I don't like it. And yet to some extent you do have kind of like return periods and things like that. But maybe ultimately that $9, if I use it for like a month and a half, wasn't worth it. But with a subscription, I can always stop and start again when I please. I know that's overly simplifying it because it's a lot more of a pain in the butt than that. But I do think it's a way of people being able to compete with other apps that are either free or, as you said, low priced, rightly or wrongly. I sometimes think the latter. And that still gives people freedom and the right to say, okay, I will continue, you continue to bring value, so I will continue to give value to you or give you compensation for that as well. And I know that they're annoying, but especially if they're kind of like earnest, if they're priced well, and that you're not, and they don't, you don't ask a user to call you to cancel your subscription or something. Like that. I think it's an option, and I think it's an option that is one of the only ones that people might find viable, might find like palatable for their users and for their consumers. So I think it's a tool
for their business. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I can't continue doing what I'm doing if I'm not making this money to support the infrastructure, to support my time, whatever. One of the things that kind of came to my mind is, even for the indie developers, like the one person team, let's say, that might create an app, and you might say, well, it's just one person. Like what do they have to support, with $2.99 or whatever? It kind of reminds me of like the Patreon model, right? Like in many other avenues, we find someone who we think is creating good music or creating good YouTube content or whatever, and we find value in that enough to say, hey, I like what you're doing. So, maybe in this case, you don't necessarily need to pay for the app. Maybe in this case, you're just supporting. Well, I mean, going back to the mantra, right? Supporting your dev. You're saying this is a dev who's creating really great work, and I want to reward this dev for that great work. And I'm willing to give this dev $2 a month just because I think what they're doing is really cool. And maybe it's a mindset shift. At the same time, there are people who will, they're going to be kicking and screaming to the idea of paying more in monthly subscriptions. And I don't know what to tell you. Can't please everybody.
Yeah. And like, I don't see how you can say you're anti a revenue stream to support devs. Like, I just don't see how you can say it. I believe that good work should be compensated in whichever format the developer or the business or whatever decides to, given the confines of the marketplace. And right now the marketplace is the App Store ecosystem, and that's how it works. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm biased. I'm a dev and I like to eat, but I don't mean to simplify it or kind of be so flippant about it. But I mean, I should eat. I should eat. It's good. And it's true. And I just like to also emphasize, especially for mobile in particular, and talking about apps in particular. I know, again, we gave some very simple examples, but there's always going to be a chance that, especially the industry and the tech sphere that mobile is, everything moves forward. Certainly you're going to have people that use the same phone for like 8 years if they can. But in general, I think the average is that people are going to update their phones 2 to 3 to 4 years. Google is going to update your OS, whether you like it or not. And I think as a dev, there is I do feel personally some ethical responsibility to build software that works, that serves the people that are if they're paying me, or just in general, I have an ethical responsibility to do my best job to write something that serves people, especially if they're paying me for it. Now, there's a conflict there that if you pay me once and, say that we kind of come to a net zero where I felt like you've paid me what I, deserved to do that initial implementation. What happens in 5 years when, and this has happened, Android pushes some kind of breaking OS change or some kind of security incident happens and you have to kind of update some protocol in your application. What do I need to do? What can I do then? What if it takes me like a month, 2 months to fix that? What if it takes me, licensing something or having to switch something out, and you've already kind of paid me what we've agreed initially that owed me, I guess. It's never going to be as simple as a one and done. There's always going to be something more, especially if you want your app especially if it's an app that continues to provide value and you want it to continue to be valuable, to be useful, to be up to date, to be safe, security wise. It's just going to incur costs. And so I know subscriptions suck, but sometimes, especially for, again, small and independent developers, it's kind of the best way to kind of continue incentivizing sounds a little bit cold, but just allowing people to keep doing these things. I think a lot of us enjoy what we do, but we need to eat and we need to kind of make up for this time or pay for the server band, whatever, storage,
cover
and server
all the costs.
bandwidth. We need to cover costs. I would love it if I could just make my apps for free and then have someone else foot the bill for all these other kind of auxiliary accompanying costs. I really would. But it doesn't work like that. So
it's not realistic. Yeah.
Fascinating. See, Brett, thank you for sending in your email, as rantastic as it was, the email of the week.
But what an email of the week. What a first email of the week for him. I'm so
yeah, exactly.
Welcome.
I thought, I was ooh, dang.
Right? Here we go. Yeah, it's like you said before the show, right out of the frying pan into the fire.
Oh, yeah. A nice, easy, chill one to start.
Yeah, no big deal. Just hit it out of the park.